Welcome to Negotiate Value Lesson 2. I'm Jack, glad you're here. I'm at my desk, I've got my banner, and this is a very exciting lesson for me. I get a rare privilege, which is to introduce you to one of the great loves of my life. And I can still remember the day we met. It was an econ class at Kellogg School of Business at Northwestern, and I was sitting toward the back. My professor walked up to the board, the blackboard. He had a piece of chalk in his hand, real chalk, and he started to draw this, the value bar chart. Now, you're familiar with this from reading the lesson this week, and I must say that I'm getting a little sentimental as I think about, the day we first met, but I'm also serious because I did get to go to one of the best business schools in the world. As I think back upon those 2 years and all that I learned, I have to say that this framework is probably the single most valuable thing that I've learned, and certainly the one that I've leveraged the most afterwards. I've really kind of based my career on seeing the world this way and helping my clients and employers see the world this way. So you may be scratching your head and saying, this is so simple. Well, the profound things in life often are the very simple things, but simple doesn't mean easy. In my experience working with Fortune 500 companies, a lot of the best known brands in the world, government agencies, nonprofits, down to entrepreneurs and small businesses, this is something that groups don't do very well. They don't buy with value in mind. They tend to focus on price and not really see the benefit and define the value. And this is really at the center of this course, so it's critical that we get this concept now. When you think about why do companies not do this well, I think it kind of makes sense. Let's say you and I were talking about a purchase that you had upcoming the next few weeks, and maybe it's a pair of shoes or a coat, maybe it's a meal, maybe it's a car or an appliance. So think about what that purchase is, and let's say that you and I were going to define the right price for that purchase. We'd have to ask a few questions, right? We'd have to say, well, who sells this? What are the range of features that are available on it? What's the right range of pricing that it should be? What kind of deals or discounts could we get? All those things. It would involve some work, but that's all pretty straightforward. Now let's say that for the same purchase, we were going to define what the benefit is. So what are the questions we have to answer to determine the benefit? We'd have to say, well, how are you going to use this? Why is it important to you? How does this fit into where you're headed, to your strategy? All these things that are a little bit more internal, they're more personal, and they require more judgment. So these are sort of harder questions to answer. Now, the good news is that this is at the center of this course, Negotiate Value, and it can be done. You will learn tactics and techniques to answer that question of what is the benefit reliably and consistently, and to do that with skill and confidence. And that's what we're about now. That's going to make a huge impact on whether you're able to negotiate the most value out of your negotiations and your purchases. So that's how it ties together. And let's move to the homework now, where we get to practice this. And we'll start taking a look at last week's homework. If you haven't done last week's homework, you might want to take a break and do it. Not that hard to do. I just added the date and the lesson number to my homework. And now this week what we're after is taking 3 purchases, and for each of those drawing the value bar chart. So let's start with that, and we'll put a line here for the price, and then the top line is the benefit. And what we want to do is pick one of the purchases that we made. I'm going to use my homework from last week, which is why I added here. And I'm just going to take the first purchase, which was for a cup of coffee. Okay? So now let's take a look at that coffee. We're going to list the price bullet points, and we're going to do that in both dollars and time. That was $4.65 and 10 minutes. And then we're going to list the benefit bullet points. So, for that cup of coffee, I'm going to say, well, I certainly got my caffeine fix, and if you're an addict, you know that that's highly valuable. I enjoyed the taste. I'll write that down. It was pleasurable, and got some energy out of it. There were some calories involved, and calories are important, right? Okay, so this is for the cup of coffee. Let me label this. And we've simply got our benefit bullet points. Don't need to overthink it, but just a few of the things that I enjoyed through that. And then the price, how much did it cost? All right, so that is the value bar chart for the cup of coffee. Let me run through a couple more transactions. let's look next at a tank of gas. So for that, I paid $52 and spent 5 minutes pumping it. And then let's look at the benefits, and this is the key part of this exercise. Well, the benefits: I got to drive to work. It was convenient because the gas station was right on my way. I didn't have to go out of the way to get the gas. And then just another benefit I thought of, well, I got to take the kids to practice. So don't have to overthink it, just put down a few bullet points of what these benefits are. For now, we're getting pretty general, and later we'll get a little deeper. I'm going to get one more transaction here, talk it through. That is an art class for the kids. So the price, $220, that's for 2 kids, and 4 hours, and now I'm counting the time that it took me to take the kids to the art class and bring them back. And then when I look at the benefits, well, there was a child care benefit. The kids were safe and in good care. They were learning art instruction, and that's valuable to us. They were developing their fine motor skills, another benefit. And they had some good teachers there that are role models. And so these are all just a few things that I thought of as benefits. It doesn't have to be exhaustive, but go through your 3 transactions and put down the benefits that you have. So that's pretty simple. That's the homework for this week. Now let's get to the bonus real quickly, and I want to come back to this idea about the one-armed fisherman. And if this didn't quite make sense to you when you read it in the lesson, that's okay, because it's really sort of a visual joke, and maybe you've heard it. But the deal is, did you hear about the one-armed fisherman? He caught a fish this big. All right, so because he caught a fish this big, you don't really know, because it was one arm. But was a fish this big? Was it this big? Was it this big? Was it this big? Right? It's a one-armed fisherman. So the reason this is important, the relevance of this joke, it's not just a silly joke, but I think the world is full of one-armed fishermen. So if you think about reading the newspaper and reading about companies, how are companies described? Well, they're usually described first by their revenues, by the sales. You say, well, that's a $3 billion company, or that's a $50 million company. Now, to me, that's a one-armed fisherman. That's the head of the fish, a $50 million company. But a $50 million company could be unprofitable, a negative fish. That doesn't really make sense, but you know what I mean. Or it could have no profit, or it could make $10 or $20 million in profit, right? And that would be a much bigger fish. But to call it a $50 million company is just one end of the fish. So that's an example for companies and valuation and revenues. But now let's talk about purchases, because here's where we hear this a lot. Somebody will say, well, I got a great deal on my car. Well, why was it such a great deal? Well, the price was $25,000. Okay, that's the head of the fish. Now, that might be a competitive price for that car. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But let's say you employed the best negotiating techniques to get the right price, and you got a great price at $25,000. I still don't know if that was a great deal for you or not, because I don't know what the value is. So the point is, that car could have been worth $23,000 to you, then that's not a good deal. If it's worth $50,000 to you, then it's a great deal. So a price in isolation is a one-armed fisherman. It's the head of the fish. It means nothing without understanding the benefit. That's kind of the central thrust of this course, and or the big idea that makes this a little different from some other negotiation training. So I hope you get that, and as you go through this next week, this next period of time, think about the one-armed fisherman. Where do you hear about it? When people buy, when people describe companies? And try not to be that. Don't be that guy. Be a two-armed fisherman. Figure out both the head and the tail, and figure out the entire value, not just one point, not just the price. So that's it for this week. Do your homework, and we'll see you back here soon.